Mountain High, Colorado in this thing with me. Flow crazy 730, you just 650. Let's get into it. Welcome back to House Rich, the first time homebuyer show where we help millennials figure out where do I get started in real estate and how to build generational wealth. Today I'm going to be talking about a trip my wife and I took to Colorado Springs recently where we stayed in a $1 million Airbnb property and what it taught us about taking generational actions to build generational wealth, a little bit of house hacking, and basically the steps you need to take to build wealth, because everyone talks about generational wealth, but there's actually many steps between building the wealth and then keeping the wealth for the next generation. So I want to give a big shout out to the inspiration for the intro, New Orleans philosopher Dwayne Carter. Let's get into it. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown before I go into the story, but it was a $1 million Airbnb unit. It was a detached triplex. The owners did not live in any of the units. However, the owner's daughter lived in one of the units as well. So let's get into this property, right? And so one, it was kind of hard to find the unit because like the unit did not exist on the map, right? It was a unit 11 and a half. So we could find a unit 12 on the map. And so we had instruction from the owner because they knew the unit did not appear on the map. So when we got there, I was like, okay, cool. This nice little small cottage in this amazing historic neighborhood. I'll show you some pictures of that, and I'll post pictures throughout the episode as well. And so I was just kind of chilling in the backyard because we had just got there, and I was like, a unit 11 and a half. I bet you this is a duplex, right? Because it's weird for it to be an 11 and a half unit, and like this address, actually we couldn't find it on the Google GPS. And so I'm sitting in the backyard, and I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, we got our little square yard, but actually, if you follow the fence line, the fence connects with our fence, and it goes around to this other property. Yeah, I bet you that is unit 11 over there. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool that this family is able to actually rent out one of their units as an Airbnb and potentially live in the other unit. And then I was like, I remember the instructions my wife was reading from the Airbnb guests when we got there, like the do's and don'ts. And the hosts were like, hey, you may run into our daughter. She lives in one of the other properties, like across the fence or something like that. And I was like, huh, that's pretty cool. So this couple is in a position to where one, they have this lot with two properties, right? And they're able to have their daughter to live in one of the properties. So we talk about like generational wealth and building wealth amongst your family. Like I said, I don't know what the living situation is with the daughter. She's paying market rent or no rent, whatever. But I'm like, man, this family is so secure. One, that they're able to have their daughter live in one of their units and not have to worry about the mortgage on that unit or the income from the unit. Because we think about it like we're on a plane. They say, if the plane's going down, put on your mask first, right, before you try to take care of other folks. So they're probably pretty financially secure themselves in order to do that. And so I do this in every Airbnb I'm in because I like to pocket watch. I think most folks like to pocket watch, but I just like to admit it, right? And so I looked up the value of the property, and it was like 970, like $3,000 and change. And so I was reading the description. It's like people like this triplex because it has two 1,900 square foot units and a 900 square foot cottage on it as well. And that's the unit that my wife and I were in. So I was like, hold up. Now that I look at it, this lot is kind of like oddly shaped, kind of like the Tetris piece that looks like a thunderbolt. If you actually think about it as a square, this is a triplex. So I started to look and I was like, boom, there goes the other unit. And so when you think about building generational wealth, like folks talk about it, but there's actually actions and steps you need to take to build generational wealth. So step one for building generational wealth was this family did something, or maybe their parents did something back in the day to build some sort of wealth and build some stability with the family. Step two was they bought an asset. So in order to keep the wealth, you need to buy assets that generate money. So they bought this lot with 3 units on it, or maybe, well, the units are pretty old. So like the unit we were in was probably built in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And I could tell it was old because, like I said, it was 900 square feet, but like every inch of that place was used. It felt bigger. And then two, the windows were, you could just tell it was old. Like the windows didn't have like the pull-up windows. They actually like folded down and had latches. And even the steps, like I wear a size like 9.5, but like my foot was like 2 or 3 inches off the steps. That's how small like the steps were. So I could tell there was like back in the day where I guess people were smaller, right? But step two is actually like buy an asset. So that's step two. But then step three, which a lot of people miss, is you have to actually hold on to that asset, whether it's real estate or it's a stock, in order for it to appreciate. Because I think things a lot of folks miss, like the last 2 years have screwed a lot of people up when we talk about assets, because we think, hey, you can buy a home in January and then sell it in August and make $80,000-$90,000. That's what folks have led you to believe the last few years, which was a very, very abnormal housing market. But this family has held onto this property to the point that they probably have so much equity in it. Once again, they can have their daughter eliminate her biggest living expense, and because their daughter, she may be an artist, because one of her paintings was actually in our Airbnb, so she's able to execute on her dreams, most likely save a little bit of her living expense. Let's say it may cost, I don't know, $2,000 to live in an area. Maybe she's paying $1,000 in rent or nothing. So she's able to pocket, an extra $1,000 in rent and stay in that area. And so if you want to look this place up, it's Colorado Springs. It's the historic North District, the most beautiful neighborhood I've ever seen in my life. Because you have the neighborhood, but then you have the backdrop of the mountains. But then I think we're on step 4, right? Is actually maintaining the asset. So with the stock, the easy way to maintain it is you just sit there, and if it's a dividend stock, you collect dividends, or if it's a growth stock, you let it grow, and then maybe if you have a bunch of stock, you sell off pieces of the stock in order to live your life. With real estate, you actually have to maintain the property to make it attractive, to make the people want to actually come live in that property, because people buy real estate. That's not the hard part, but keeping it is the hard part, because whether it's taxes, whether it's being run down, you don't have the money to fix it, you have to sell it, or somebody passed in the family, there's not like a will or a trust set up to see who the property goes to, and then one person wants to sell it off. The most important step in generational wealth is like maintaining that property. And they did. Like that Airbnb unit was probably one of the most detailed units I've ever been in. From we walked in it and our name was on like this chalkboard. It was cool. They had all these little small details. Like I said, it was a very old house, but it felt super new because they just had all these nice details. The backyard was amazing. Like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see some of the pictures that we took of the property. But yeah, so there's generational wealth, then there's generational action. So it was cool to see what this family had built that my wife and I are trying to build ourselves. So generational wealth, one thing, generational actions, please take them to build generational wealth. But that's a quick episode I wanted to talk about because I just got back from Colorado yesterday. So join my first time homebuyer community if you want to kind of continue the conversation, if you want to join our trainings on Tuesday and actually have input in what we're doing as far as the training. And as always, buy land. Rumor has it they're not making any more of it. All right, see y'all next week. Thank you for listening to the show. If you want to connect with other listeners and also dive deeper into topics, as well as attend live trainings every Tuesday at 8 p.m., click the link down below and join the First Time Homebuyer School. See you inside.